has had no end of persecution for the last 2.5, 3 years. He's been on the phone, long distance to me. I've been.
It looks like he just got dropped, FYI.
Yes, I'm still here.
Yeah, good. And so am I. And Ron, you're
John?
there, right? Yeah, it looks like we lost John.
Well, he's in BC now. They don't like people talking like he is.
No,
so
they don't. But you want to know something? It happens. So, folks, when we come back, we'll discuss more about the economy and where we think we're going from here. So please stay tuned. You're listening to the Intel Hub News Network.
I had a dream the other night that, well, I didn't understand. A figure walked in through the mist with a flintlock in his hand. His clothes were torn and dirty as he stood there by my bed. He took off his three-cornered hat, and speaking low to me, he said, "We fought a revolution to secure our liberty. We wrote the Constitution as a shield from tyranny. For future generations, this legacy we gave. In this, the land of the free and home of the brave. The freedoms we secured for you, we hoped you'd always keep. The tyrants labored endlessly while your parents were asleep. Your freedom's gone, your courage lost. You're no more than a slave. In this, the land of the free and home of the brave. You buy permits to travel and permits to own a gun, permits to start a business or to build a place for one. On land that you believe you own, you pay a yearly rent, although you have no voice in saying how the money's spent. Your children must attend a school that doesn't educate, and your Christian values can't be taught according to the state. You read about the current news in a regulated press, and you pay a tax you do not owe to please the IRS. Your money is no longer made of silver nor of gold. You trade your wealth for paper so your life can be controlled. You pay for crimes that make our nation turn from God and shame. You've taken Satan's number. You've traded in your name. You've given government control to those who do you harm so they could burn down churches and seize the family farm and keep our country deep in debt, put men of God in jail, harass your fellow countrymen while corrupted courts prevail. Your public servants don't uphold the solemn oaths they've sworn, and your daughters visit doctors so their children won't be born. Your leaders send artillery and guns to foreign shores and send your sons to slaughter fighting other people's wars. Can you regain the freedoms for which we fought and died? Or don't you have the courage or the faith to stand with pride? And are there no more values for which you'll fight to save? Or do you wish your children to live in fear and be a slave? O sons of the Republic, arise, take a stand, defend the Constitution, the supreme law of the land. Preserve our great republic and each God-given right. And pray to God to keep the torch of freedom burning bright. As I awoke, he'd vanished in the mist from whence he came. His words were true. We are not free, but we have ourselves to blame. For even now, as tyrants trample each God-given right, we only watch and tremble, too afraid to stand and fight. If he stood by your bedside in a dream while you were asleep and wondered what remains of the freedoms he fought to keep, what would be your answer if he called out from the grave? Is this still the land of the free and home of the brave? God bless you, and God bless this republic.
Well, I'll tell you what, that always gets me whenever I hear that, and that's why I like to play that sometimes at the top of the hour, and you'll hear that a little bit more just because it's very moving. Now, without further ado, folks, I want to segue now to the King's Court. So, John, take it away.
Thanks, Joe. This just in, the dead have begun to rise from their graves and have begun to feast upon the flesh of the living. The bodies of half-decayed corpses have been seen crawling from their resting places as several bodies of the reanimated back to life in mortuaries and morgues have begun to come back. The zombies are repeating the phrase brains, as they need this for sustenance. However, it is unfortunate that they will now starve, as there are few individuals in this world with brains. This story has been fabricated to illustrate a point. Earlier in the week, we heard of breaking news near Cleveland, Ohio, that an armed gunman was running about NASA with the NASA complex with a gun. Several calls to 911 were made by different people. There have been reports that the person answering the phone didn't hear the words, "This is a test." I say bull. Even the activation of the emergency broadcast system has a follow-up announcement that says if this would have been an actual emergency, you would have been followed up by instructions on how to properly kiss your butt goodbye. But there was none. So tell me, NASA, does it take more than a rocket scientist to answer your phones? Then we heard of it as being caused by a phone glitch, or the rumor that the computer tripped the wrong facility, that this exercise was meant for somewhere else. Excuses, excuses. All to keep the panic level high. I say someone should have to pay for this, as valuable resources were used. The fire department, the ambulance, and the police and the sheriff's departments were all called in. What if an actual emergency were to take place, like a kitten across the other side of town stuck in a tree? The poor little kitten would have had to wait, as all the county's resources were tied up in a massive media psyop. Look, folks, the odds of you being killed in a terrorist attack are less than being struck by lightning. Stop living in fear and live for today, for the world is full of mindless zombies looking for a brain, and for them there is no return from the eternal hell for which they reside, because they refuse to think objectively and with an open mind. This was a test of the King's Court broadcasting system, and if this were an actual emergency, you would have been given complete instructions on how to fix
Yeah, I know. Thank you, John. I got you there, man. No way. You ain't going there, buddy. But anyway, Griff, we got a caller in queue. I'm going to go to Lee in Kentucky. Lee, you're live on the program. Go ahead.
How are you gentlemen this evening?
We're doing just fine.
Wonderful, wonderful. I've got a question, and I'll ask it at the end of the statement. I wanted to make a comment. First, I want to just John on the show there. In listening to your program over the past several months, I've listened to some of the things that he's done to prepare, and it's really is very inspiring, and you can tell that the man has put a lot of thought and effort into the things that he's done to try to get ready. And earlier they made a comment, about, well, if we don't have gas, you don't have chainsaw to cut wood and do all these things. To me, Americans have relied too much on technology, and so what they're doing is they'll go out and they'll spend, $700-800 on a generator. That, it might work for a couple of weeks, but when there's no gas, what good does that do you? And in my mind, I think you have to go back 100, 150 years, and an axe, where yes, it takes a lot more effort, but an axe can get you some wood. And if you go back to the mindset of how they lived 100, 150 years ago, instead of trying to take this quick, easy fix, and you start acquiring those type of tools, hand drills, things like that, where you can actually do something with what you've got, I think, and I would venture to say that John probably has some of those things and listened to some of the things that he said. The other thing I wanted to bring up was the gentleman earlier had talked about the church. And how the church has got out of touch with, they've kind of got in, I hate to use this term, but they've kind of got in bed with this New Age movement and this New World Order. In fact, I've even heard on Alex Jones about pastors being sent letters to tell the flock when martial law comes that they're to render under Caesar's that which is Caesar's. And they've taken that totally out of context. And the problem, I think, in the church today is men. Men have forgotten or won't or don't or refuse to be men. And I'd say that AC knows where I'm coming from with his experience. But I was brought up in Kentucky, and things are a little different. And a couple of you boys are from the South here too. I think you're in North Carolina, one's in Virginia. But it's a different culture. It's just a different world.
You're right.
And it's I really worry about most Americans, because they're brothers. And when you try to talk to someone about this, you're going to either get shocked or they think you're just totally out of your tree. And they shun you. And, our only responsibility is to, just like with the gospel, our responsibility is to share it and announce it. And what they do with it, once they've heard it, we've done our job.
That's right. It's their responsibility.
And that's why I like your all show so much. You guys are doing so much. And I know there's, like I said the other day, people don't call in much because, they get a little sideways or what have you. But I know there's people out there listening that they want to call, but they don't call. And there's so many that are benefiting from your program. And my question is, one other comment.
Sure.
AC the other night, I don't want to take up too much time. AC the other night, we was talking about part of the reason I think the church has got this attitude of complacency or just going to ride it out and see what happens because it really won't matter because Jesus is going to just come snatch us up and take us out of here. AC made a comment the other night, told a gentleman to call him after the show, and I know what he was getting at because I believe I know where AC stands on this. This rapture theory, first of all, the word rapture is not in the Bible, and it's the timing. Yes, Christ is coming back. There is a second coming. But there's only one day of the Lord. There's not 2 days, and it's not this yo-yo effect. We have got to get ready for his return, but he told us to endure some things. And I think AC's on that same page. I'm not sure. I'm guessing. But my question is for you guys, and I'd like to hear an answer from all three of you, really, is recently they have discovered a major oil deposit in Israel. And with gas prices going up, I'd like to hear your all's response on how you think that might affect our economy, and could that start a price war that could trigger a real war in the Middle East? And with us turning our back on Israel, I mean, is that really a wise move at this time? And I'm going to get off the phone and listen to your answer, and I just want to support you guys again and say God bless you and keep up the good work.
Well, God bless you too, Lee. And Griff, I'm going to let you take that one first.
Okay.
It's been a little while. Go ahead.
I don't think it matters. I think situations in the United States are about to break open. I think we're on the verge of financial disaster, and I think it's going to happen very soon, in a matter of days or weeks. They're lined up. Major events are lined up, ready to fall upon us. And whether or not Israel has oil deposits is of no consequence. The military is building up and jockeying around over there in that part of the world for some kind of action between Israel and Iran. That's going to turn into a major conflict, and I'm afraid the United States is going to get hit in American cities as a result of that military action, on top of the financial collapse. And if that isn't bad enough, we have Armageddon brewing down in the Gulf of Mexico. That situation is getting worse and worse down there. So I think the oil in Israel will be a non-issue. Joe?
You know, Griff, isn't it interesting though how? And I'm right there with you, and I don't know. I'm going to get John's take on it too, but isn't it interesting how people still just live their lives, just their standard run-of-the-mill existence? They wake up, they go to work, they work their tail off, they go home, they drink their beer, they watch their football, they go to bed, they repeat day in and day out. While all this stuff is going on, I mean, it's amazing how life can still go on as normal for most people every day when we're just on the brink like we are. You know what I mean? It really kind of takes me aback when I kind of step back and I look at everything and I see just how people are caught up in all these worldly things, and they just don't see the truth and what's actually going on. How do you feel about it, John? I'm interested to hear your thoughts on it.
people are right.
Well, to get to the first part of what Lee was saying.